Welcome to Makers International, a podcast of makers from around the world, talking with makers from around the world. Here's Jamie Page, Steve Twidell, Chris Cute, and now your host, Richard Morley.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, and good times, whatever time it is, wherever you're listening. Joined with me this evening, Mr. Chris Cute.
How you doing?
And Mr. Steve Twidell.
Good evening.
And Mr. Jamie Page.
How y'all doing?
This evening we have two fine, upstanding members of tomorrow's community in the form of Caitlan, the cat. Hello, Caitlan.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good.
Good. And also Chloe, that you probably won't have met before or know anything about. Lucky you, by the way. Also known as Dirks Works over on Instagram. And also you've been kind of mentioned as Mini Noodle, because Mini Noodle is Mini Hippie Noodles, if for anyone that doesn't know. So we'll come back to you two in just a second, and we'll go through the normal kind of shout outs, thank yous, and usual bits and bobs at the start. So as always, we'll do a few quick shout outs over on YouTube from last week's video. That's Jake Thompson. And over on SoundCloud, we have, drum roll please, Alexander Chapman, Philip. That sounded like a cat purring that wasn't.
Well, I'm just spur of the moment. Don't be. Shut up. Go ahead.
Meow.
We'll just edit that one out. So we have on SoundCloud Alexander Chapman, Philip Summers, and has anyone noticed that SoundCloud has the weirdest handles in the world? We have a CDJ D5. So I can't imagine that was a christened name, but they're the three people over on SoundCloud.
All right, D5.
So, as always, this evening's podcast is brought to you in part by Yorkshire Grit, the Wood Turners Abrasive Paste, our good friend Chad over at Mancrafting, and Pam from Highland Boxes. Jamie, you're doing all the internet stuff over on the website. Are you putting all this stuff on there?
Hello, Jamie.
Fantastic.
Jamie's gone to sleep.
If you want to find out if Jamie's putting all the stuff on the website, you can go to www. You had your chance. Go to Makers International Podcast.
My computer was freezing.
Turn the eating up then. makersinternationalpodcast.com/sponsors. And hopefully Jamie's computer is warm enough to update all that stuff. Right. This evening, we are going to be talking about, it's kind of a follow-on from last week, the week before, and a few conversations we've had so far about making and the education system and all the rest of it. Last week, we had guests on talking about it from a teacher's point of view, and this week, we thought it would be rather cool to have it from the student's point of view. So, Caitlan and Chloe, I don't know who wants to go first. I believe you're both in Year 9, which is 9th grade, I think, in the US, and if you're not in the UK or the US, it's whatever year it is when you're 14-ish. So do you do making at school?
Yeah. A bit. There's a club on Wednesdays that you can go to, which is free. And that's in like the woodworking thing. And then obviously the lessons.
So do you have specific lessons to do with, I mean, not just woodworking, but also, do you like arts and drama and like cooking, home ec and sewing and those sorts of things?
Yeah, we've got dance, drama, food tech, IT, resistant materials, graphics, and textiles, and those all come under DT.
Okay, DT being Design technologies,
yeah.
Okay. And how about yourself, Caitlan? Do you have to do all those sorts of things at school as well?
We have drama, art, music, food tech, and computer tech, but we don't do like DT, like woodworking and things.
Do they do the sort of? I think you called it. What did you just call it with the drawing side of it? Technical drawing?
Drafting.
Drafting.
Graphics,
yeah. Do you do the graphics side of it at school at all?
No.
So is that a tool in the school, or is it an option that's not available to you for GCSEs? Because I'll start again. Have you started your GCSE course yet, or do you start in year 10?
We start in year 10.
Okay, because you've just started, haven't you?
Yeah,
in
we
year 9?
started at the beginning of year 9.
Okay, so you've taken your options to what you're going to do, and Caitlin, presumably you'll be picking this year and doing them next year. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so from the point of view of the woodworking or the graphics or those other subjects, do you have the facilities at school to do them, or is it just nothing at all?
Nothing at all.
Right. Okay. So
now, that's going to be my next question. Because Chloe, you mentioned that the woodworking that's available to you right now, that to me it sounded like that's an after school activity that's free of charge, but it's not part of your typical daily school curriculum. Is that correct?
No. So there's the resident materials, which is woodwork, and that is a GCSE option. But so many people want to do it, so I wanted to choose it for my GCSEs. But because so many people wanted to do it, I was put in graphics. So there's the after school free club that people can go to that want to do it and can't.
So if you couldn't get that to be part of your school day, you have the option of joining that club and doing it after school.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it.
Okay,
and
so
if you don't mind, Richard, because I mean, just because this American needs an education, I don't know what GCSEs are. I don't understand your school system that way. I mean, I'll tell you how simple the American system, when I went, is we had to do our math, science, our English, our social studies, our PE, and that normally allowed us to have 2 electives within a semester. You could pick a couple elective courses, and that was part of my complete school day. So those elective courses were, I'm guessing, what you're calling your GCS. I don't know what the GCSE is. If you could educate me on that. I mean, other people listening may not know the British system either.
Okay, the GCSE stands for the General Certificate of Secondary Education.
Which means what?
So basically in schools, you have to do, and I'm looking at Chloe because, oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying this because she'll know more about this than me because obviously she's there. And Caitlin, I'm looking to you as well from this, and correct me if, in fact, why don't you guys tell, what is it?
So you have to do English, maths and sciences, and at some schools you have to do a language. So at my school, we have to take French. At most schools, you do have to do a language, but you can choose. And then you get to pick 3. So you can choose to do triple science or just do core science. And then you can pick a DT and a humanities, so history or geography or psychology.
Is that similar for you at your school, Caitlin? Would you?
We don't have to do a language. But we've got triples. We've got 4 options to do. So I've picked health and social, art, geography, and computer science.
Okay, so essentially, Chris, what it is a kind of a broad spectrum of subjects, and then there's a few that you get to choose that you can do. If that makes sense.
But I mean, as Jamie was explaining last week, some of the subjects that you get to pick and choose that you want to take. I mean, because I think, Jamie, you said you had to list 10 of them, and then it's basically on a first come, first serve basis, or how do they fill these classes? Because I know that Caitlin or Chloe had just said that hers was full, so she ended up having to take the free class or the free club afterwards. How do the schools decide who? I guess what I'm asking is, let's say, I'll just say woodworking, since that's what Chloe mentioned, is if that class during the regular school day is already full, and there's a ton of people who want to get into that, they now have a club after school. But I'm just saying, who decides who gets in that class and who doesn't? Is there a grading system, or is it a first come, first serve, or how does that work out?
So at my school, it was you choose a first option and a second option, and then it's whichever one of the 2 that you could do better in that they put you in.
And they decide which one of the 2 you would be better in?
Yeah, so based off of previous tests.
Okay.
So you're in year 9, 9th grade. So that is in the sort of for the end of the school kind of lifespan, I guess, for 11 to 16. That is for the first 2 years, you do a little bit of all of those subjects. So you've already done a bit of French, you've already done some woodwork, you've already done other subjects. But then for the last 3 years for you, and I guess 2 years for you, Caitlin, you get to pick the ones that you want to do more of in the last 2 years and then get examined on before you leave school and move on to something else. Is that right?
Yeah.
Excellent. So you were saying there's no option at all within your school for anybody with between years 7 to 11 to do woodworking. Is that right?
Yeah. Okay.
So this kind of brings us neatly on Andy Pugh over in the chat, who was on last week with us. If people don't know, Andy is a retired teacher. He's taught go and listen to last week's show, because Andy knows his stuff when it comes to teachers and stuff. He's asking, what sort of schools do you go to? Now, I just thought secondary school, but there are apparently different. He was talking about
there's grammar schools and things like that.
Okay, so what kind of school do you go to, Chloe?
So Huxlow used to be a college, and I think got changed into an academy. So it's actually Huxlow Science Academy now, but I guess we all still call it a college. We all still call it Huxlow Science College.
Sure. Do you know what this is? Before I come and ask you, Kate, this is really interesting actually, because if I'd have asked one of your teachers what kind of school it was, it's this kind of school, and we do this and we do that and you do that. But from your perspective, it's like it's just where we have to go every day. They call it this, they call it fantastic, we call it horrible. Most people call it boring. I'm so glad we got this perspective on this, because this is sort of quite amusing. So yeah, okay. Caitlin, have you got what sort of school is yours?
I go to a grammar school.
Okay, so I know nothing about grammar school. So in kind of your own interpretation of it, how would you describe your teachers and your school and how it is? And horrible is a perfectly acceptable answer, by the way.
I like school stuff. It's good. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Cool.
I like schools too, but I was more the social aspect of school than it was the actual schooling part that I got along well with. But I'd be honest with you, Caitlin, if my father was sitting next to me when I was your age and I was asked that question, my answer would have been the same as yours. Oh, I love school. Yeah, I love school.
Wonderful, brilliant. Yeah, your dad's not one of the governors at the school or anything like that, is he? Just
no.
Okay.
We're just teasing. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Sorry, Caitlin's dad. I'm just giving her a hard time. Anyway.
Okay. So you've picked your subjects.
Yeah.
And you were saying you get a choice. So
yeah,
I could do this, and then I really want to do that.
Yeah.
So
you get a first choice and a second choice. So say you had history, geography, psychology, and RS in one block.
RS being
religious studies.
Right. Okay.
And you really didn't want to do religious studies, and you wanted to do, say, history and psychology, you could put whichever one you wanted to do more as your first choice, and then whichever one you wanted to do least out of your second choice.
Right. So, and how about yourself, Caitlin? Because presumably you're sort of in the middle of trying to decide. No, you said you've already picked.
Yeah, I've already picked. I had an interview near the start of the year of what subjects I wanted to do. I wanted to do food tech, but that didn't run because there was only me that wanted to do it. And then I wanted to do film studies, but that didn't run because there was 12 people that wanted to do it, and they had to have 15 people to run it.
Okay, so you've almost got the opposite problem that Chloe had, and I guess this highlights the difficulties the schools have in kind of trying to keep everyone happy and then running what they can run and so on and so forth. Because you wanted to do woodwork but got told you couldn't,
Yeah.
Whereas you wanted to do food tech. You wanted to do food tech and you got told that you couldn't do it, but you wanted to do woodwork, but it was not available.
Yeah.
It's sort of the opposite thing. So how have you kind of gone about resolving that? I mean, presumably, well, we all know that you're doing your wood turning, Caitlin, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about your kind of woodworking side. But I'll ask the question to you first, Caitlin. How did you get around the not being able to do woodworking?
Well, I picked art instead because it's art at the end of the day, and it still comes under like woodworking, but drawing instead.
So your art classes at school, are they predominantly kind of painting, drawing, that sort of what I would consider being sort of traditional artwork, you know, paintings on a wall kind of thing? Or did they?
Yes.
Chloe, same question.
Yeah, so I picked graphics for my second choice, which is kind of the same course as resistant materials, but with plastics instead of woods. So like you go into plastic instead of wood, and then I've been doing like turning and stuff at home. So
I mean, a similar sort of situation to Caitlan. You're fortunate in so much as you've got access to woodworking type tools, but presumably you know people at school who wanted to do resistant materials, but they don't have access to that. How do
you just got to stick with what you get?
It's pretty much just a sharp and lump it.
Yeah, try your hardest. There have been a few people who have really not liked the courses that they're doing, and they've taken it up with the head teacher, and they've switched people around. But I don't think that's fair. So even though I really want to be doing resistant materials, I'm not going to take it up with anyone because somebody's already spent a year in that lesson. And if I then go and ask to get put in there, somebody's going to get taken out because there isn't enough space, and they've already spent that time doing that course.
But also presumably you've wasted a year doing something else, and then you've got a year's worth of stuff to catch up if you're going to do any work. So
if you're going to do it, you want to do it at the beginning of the year.
It seems to me like that you guys are being asked to make, I guess, important decisions rather early on. Because like you just said, if you went into it like next year after somebody this year has spent an entire year and they only have one class to offer, and then you come in, you know, as a newbie with somebody who's already got a year behind them, I mean, you're going to be, in a roundabout way, you'd be holding the class back, but you'd also be setting yourself up to fail because you wouldn't be walking into that classroom with the information that the majority of the other students have. It just seems like that, like at age 13 or so, you guys are being asked to make decisions that are, God, I mean, I don't know. I mean, am I wrong? Am I reading that right, Richard?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly was the same as you. There's some quite serious decisions that need to be made
At a very early age, when most of us, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Chloe, Caitlan, I'll ask both of you. Do you know what you want to do for a living the rest of your life? I mean, because when I was your age, I didn't have a clue. I knew I enjoyed things more than other things, but that was just playing around. I mean, I didn't know that I wanted to, grow up and become a structural engineer or, whatever the case may be. I had no clue. I just was looking for a broad education and hopefully have a good time when I was learning it. Chloe, do you know what you want to do? I mean, do you know what your profession is going to be?
No, I have no idea.
I don't think Chloe knows what day of the week it is, to be honest, Chris.
Sunday.
Caitlin's back, so let's try and get the answer to the question before Caitlan froze there. Caitlan, presumably you can hear me all right. How are you coping with kind of getting on doing the woodworking that isn't available at school? How are you sort of working around that?
Well, I go to club on a Saturday morning, and I've got a lathe at home now, so I'm all right with wood turning part.
She said that she goes to a club on a Saturday, and she's also got a lathe at home, so that's how she does her wood turning. Cool.
And how long have you been turning at home, Caitlan? Because I think most people that are certainly here live in the chat and those of us within the hangout right now, we kind of know a little bit about your background and what you're doing. But how long have you been doing that? Is that a result of not being able to do it at school, or does that come out of some other kind of, what's the word, desire to turn wood?
I've been wood turning for 3 years, and I got given a lathe last year at Maker Central from David Atkinson, and I've been turning at home for a year now.
I was actually going to say before Caitlan went off, it's actually a really good thing that you took art because you are going to find as you move forward that art is going to help you immensely through the wood turning career, because art isn't just about the drawing part and the sculpting and all that kind of stuff that you're going to be doing. It gets your mind working in a completely different way to the other activities that you're going to be doing. So it's a really good thing that you did take at least something where you can use your artistic skills, because I know for a fact that is going to help you moving forward, because that's the route that I took when I was younger. So fair play to you for doing that, even if maybe it wasn't your first choice.
Yeah, I mean, I think see classes like art and subjects of that nature that are very kind of wide, mainstream, very broad-based, can be the applications you learn from taking classes like that can be used in a lot of different fields. I mean, I was in performing arts, and that's where most of my, what I guess you would call your GCSEs, that's where I spent the last 3 years of my high school education, then went on to college. But just in high school alone, it did a lot, first of all, because it gave me the ability to stand up in front of a lot of people and speak without being nervous, because you have to kind of get over that if you're going to be an actor on stage. But on top of that, it improved my memory skills. Expanded my perception of other people, because in order to become an actor, you have to be able to take on certain roles, and so in order to do it correctly, you have to understand where that person's coming from. But even if you're not even on stage, there were times there were plays that I didn't even want to be in because I wanted to work backstage. I wanted to build the sets. And so I learned construction on building sets and artistry, because there's a lot of faux painting that is done on construction on theater sets to make it look like it's real. All the way on down, I learned so many different facets of different opportunities, including lighting, production, management, just by taking performing arts, that and you go wherever your aptitude goes from there. But it's a broad-based subject that I think is worth taking, much like art, much like what woodworking or metalworking used to be, because it was a broad-based subject that you could take in many different directions.
Yeah, Caitlan, I guess that you're going to have to do projects for your future work in art, are you? There'll probably be, and you'll probably have to do themed projects too. So will you be able to incorporate your wood turning into your art projects at school?
Yeah, I have asked my art teacher, and she said that I could hand in a piece of my wood turning for GCSE.
That's brilliant, fantastic. So it's already given you opportunities that other courses, because there aren't other courses available in your school, because you've chosen art, it's already given you an avenue back into the school with something that you love doing. So that's fantastic. That's good news.
And another thing for doing art is obviously you look at shapes different, and
absolutely. Jimmy, when you were going to school, and I know that you weren't able to get your first choices that you wanted, but what did you end up taking when you were in school?
I didn't get to take my first choice or my second choice.
What'd you end up getting?
Do you know what? I can't remember. It was so blooming long ago.
It's been that useful for you, huh?
Yeah, that useful. Do you know what? I honestly can't remember.
Richard, do you remember what your electives or your alternative or your DTs or your...
I didn't do very good though.
Yeah. Do you remember what your studies were that you took when you were in school?
Yeah, so I for my language choice, I took French because I was slightly less terrible at French than I was German. For my humanities subjects, I went with history for basically the same reason. I did woodworking, which then was called design and realization. So that was wood, metal, and plastics, but it was pretty much all wood, to be fair. And then I also did art, as in drawing art, but this is the weird thing, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, Chris, in terms of making these decisions at such a seemingly early age. I took art because one of my mates at the time, called Danny Rogers, was really good at art, and he took art, so I did as well. And that was the reason I took it. I should have done either electronics or graphics, because that would have done me a lot better for the next 5 years of my life, but I didn't. I didn't actually do the art exam in the end either, so it was a total waste of my time for 2 years.
Well, I don't want to sit here and say that the American way is better, because I don't know that it necessarily is. It's just different. When I was in school, we got to choose our electives from semester to semester. We were never locked into a certain thing. We were not told, yes, you can, or no, you can't, based on scoring or grading from previous years. If I wanted to take typing, which back in my day, typing was a class. And I took 2 years of it because there was nothing but girls in that class. And well, I became a really good typist. So it was like, I took it for all the wrong reasons. But what I'm saying is I could have taken typing this semester, and I could have taken woodworking the next semester. I could have taken drama on the third semester and something totally different on the fourth semester. And then the next year would have rolled around, and I could have done the same. I had the same kind of choices from year to year. It doesn't sound like you guys have those options. It sounds like they kind of lock you into a certain lane, and that's the lane you're kind of stuck with, and that's a decision that you end up having to make when you were 13 years old. And so by the time you're graduating, 18, you've been stuck in that lane for a while. Now, I don't know that is good. Well, I mean, I guess it gives you a better education, whatever field that is, than what I got, but it doesn't diversify your education across a lot of different places. It sounds very regimented.
Well, when I was younger, it was a little bit different. But my schooling was similar to that. So you had metalwork, woodwork, art, technical drawing, and then you had to do 2 languages, and then you had religious education as well that you had to do. So I put up with that for 2 years. And then I actually dropped out of metalwork and woodwork because the teachers were idiots, basically, and didn't know how to use pretty much 80% of the tools that were in the shops. So therefore, they were restricting us to our abilities. We couldn't use a lot of the tools in the shop, so therefore we were getting very bored and frustrated with only using the same tools all the time and being very restricted on the projects we could do. And the curriculum was being adapted to suit the tools that the teachers could teach, basically. So I dropped out of those 2 and I went straight down the art route, like Kat's doing. But then I found out that the woodwork room was being used outside of school, and they were bringing in tutors from outside of school. So I asked, or my father went in and asked, because I had absolutely no interest in religious education. In fact, I was that guy that was doing spit bombs at the teacher and throwing stuff across the room and sending notes around and causing utter trouble. Yeah. My father went in and he said, my son doesn't want to do religious education, but what he is willing to do is do an hour extra each day on his art. So put him in the art room doing projects and things that he's already working on. And then he wants to sign up for the woodwork classes after school. And that's how I did the woodwork training. So there was avenues, but it's just my teachers were completely rubbish when I was a child.
But it required you as a student to extra time. And how long was the class? It was like an hour?
Yeah.
So it tacked on an
sometimes you get a double class. So you get 2 hours.
So it tacked on an extra hour to 2 hours to your normal school day in order for you to do that.
Exactly.
So if you hadn't been such a tearaway, you'd have had the extra 2 hours off, not at school, effectively.
No, if I hadn't been such a tearaway, I would have completely wasted several more years doing religious education.
I think the only after school classes that we had at school was PE, and as you can see, I didn't take them.
Well, Caitlan, let me ask you, because Chloe had mentioned it earlier and said that she didn't do this, but if you got stuck into one of your classes that, they put you in, or maybe you applied for it and you actually got in the class, and then after you got into it, you decided, this just really isn't my thing, there's an option for you to change that. Is there, or is there not?
There's not an option for me to change what options I picked.
Okay. So you're not locked in the way I was originally thinking. Okay, so you guys can do, if you don't like what you're currently doing, you can go to the teacher, headmaster, whoever it is, and say, look, I want to get out of this because it's just not my deal. I'd rather try this. And they will do the best they can to accommodate you. Is that what I'm hearing?
Sort of.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
With the art, Caitlan, I guess this kind of sort of tallies over to you as well, Chloe, because you you wanted to do art at one point, didn't you?
Yeah, but then I realised I couldn't draw, so I kind of backed away from it.
Oh, okay. Because in the chat, Kat was saying that you were advised not to do it because you couldn't draw.
Yeah.
But you actually can draw. I mean, I've seen your drawings, and you've been putting a few on the Dirksworks Instagram, and I think if any art teacher said that you couldn't draw, then they need to maybe choose a career change themselves. We'll leave that in there. But with yourself, Caitlan, because bearing in mind I can't hear you, so if I'm right, just nod and I can see you are doing art at school, aren't you? Yeah. So from that, is there any scope in saying to your art teacher, either kind of politely or adamantly, I create these sculptures out of wood at home in my own time. I am going to submit an artistic sculpture as part of my GCSE artwork, and if you don't like it, then you need to change your career as well. Is that possible?
I think you miss Richard. Yeah, that was already. I already asked Caitlan that, and she's already arranged that she can use some of her wood turning pieces, or at least one, as part of her GCSEs. Yeah.
That is good, because I mean, that same would have been said to you, Chloe. That could have been potentially an option for you.
Yeah. The art teachers at my school aren't really that. They say that that's what you're doing, like that thing that they've set. That's your GCSE. That's what you're doing. But one of my young leaders from Scouts, he was really into photography. And like he's a photographer now.
That's Aaron, isn't it?
Yeah,
yeah,
Aaron.
I know Aaron.
And he wanted to do art because he thought that he could do photography for it, but the teacher said that he couldn't. So he went and did something else. And then when he looked back at what he could have done, he could have done it. So he was kind of annoyed at the teachers for that.
Richard, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I totally get that. I mean, I think if I'd have known, or to be honest, probably had an interest in photography when I was in art, I probably would have gone that route rather than not doing the art at all. Because actually, I never took the art exam. I did the course, I didn't do the exam, and I basically wasted 18 months or 2 years that I could have been doing something else. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I think maybe people like Andy Pugh, who used to be a teacher, or possibly Dan, if he's in the chat. I haven't seen him in the chat this evening. If you've got these good teachers and that is a possibility, then maybe kids need to be, what's the word? Kind of almost educated, bizarrely, in that there are kind of parameters, and that is not just so narrow and
broaden the scope, I guess is what you're trying to say. The question, I have a question, because we spent last week talking with teachers about their perspective of today's schooling system. I think it's only fair that we ask both Caitlan and Chloe as well. And Chloe, I'll start with you, and then Caitlan, I'll give you a chance to think about your answer to this. Chloe, if you could tell me what you think just as a student, okay, I'm not looking for you to give me the answer I want to hear. I want to hear what you say. As a student, what does your school do well that you think? What do you think that my school does this well? And on top of that, I want to know what you wish your school could do better that it's not currently doing. And that could mean anything. That could mean larger classrooms so you could take your first choice. I mean, whatever. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Tell me what you think your school does well and what you think they could do a lot better at.
They try really hard to get everybody into the options that they wanted. So they, like most people, will get their first choice, but if there is like an overflowing of the class, like half the school would want to do it, then obviously not half the school can do it because there's not enough room. So they have to select who would do better in that class. So that's good, because that's people that can do better in that class. But then I feel like they could like maybe open up more classes for it, or make the workshop bigger, or just like get more space, more tools, more staff.
So expand the curriculum. I mean, do you have a popular you have a popular subject, obviously with a student base because you're turning kids away from it, but rather than expand the schoolroom, they're just saying, no, this is it, finite number, that's you're done and dusted. And they're not currently working to expand it to facilitate the amount of kids that would like to be in that class.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. Caitlan, what about you? What do you think your school does really well, and then what do you wish that they would do better? And like I said, it could be Caitlan. You could tell me you wish your school had a longer lunch period. I don't care. Whatever you think, whatever your likes and dislikes are exactly what they are. So tell me, what do you think your school is currently doing really well, and do you wish they could do better?
My school's has got career advisors for in the future if you need help picking what subjects you want to learn at A level and for what you want to do in the future. And for the improvement, they could run the lessons after school, like for an hour a week, with the lessons that I wanted to do but I couldn't do.
So, and you know what surprises me, because I don't know, and Caitlan and Chloe, you both have my utmost respect, and I'll tell you why. Because when I was your age, I wanted to get out of school and leave the premises like immediately when the bell rang, and yet you guys are clamoring to stay an extra hour if you could, as long as you could study what you want to study. That's impressive, and that's I respect both of you for that, because that was not where my head was at when I was in school. Steve, you're shaking your head too. I assume you were probably the same way. When the bell rang, you wanted to be out of there.
Yeah, not because of the way the school was run. Well, maybe the policing side of it. It was more the bullying side for me. But I couldn't wait to get back to do the extra classes I was doing on the Monday, Wednesday, and Friday evenings. The woodwork. I used to love that because it wasn't just open for students, it was open for adults and students. So I was mixing with peers that knew what they were doing as well. And I had a really fantastic, brilliant tutor too that was coming in and doing those classes. So it was great to see the machinery being used and taught properly.
I don't know, it's just to me it strikes me as strange to hear that students, what they wish they could do, what their schools could do better, would be to provide them more schooling, and that's just that.
It's a really interesting point, actually, and I'm genuinely fascinated by comparing what Caitlan and Chloe have got to say about effectively the same experience as what Andy and Dan were talking about, and Andy, he's really fighting the fight for teachers, bless him here. He sort of said in the live chat that, you know, and we know this is true, and this is me kind of pulling his leg a little bit here. Teachers, heads of departments, heads of years, you know, even to some extent, if you go the chain all the way up to government, they're under huge pressure from pretty much everybody that wants to kind of put their dog in the ring, to provide certain things for certain people. They have to do some things. They want to do the best they can for the most part, and it's just being constantly pulled from one bit to the other. And it must be really, I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to be picking it, you know, whether you can do woodwork or whether you can do woodwork, or whether we're even going to have it available and we're all going to sit and do music. You know, that's to me a very complicated thing. And
you know, whether they would actually do any kind of woodworking in their future career, I think it's something to consider. But the point I was trying to make earlier about the broad base that a lot of classes provide, to where you not only learn woodworking, you might learn management, you might learn such and such things as part of this course, because there are different roles that you need to perform within a certain subject. Those broad-based types of classes are, I think, do very well because they allow you, the students anyway, to see different facets, you know, and the kids will always gravitate to what they first of all like, and second of all, most of the time what they like is what they're actually good at. So they end up going off to one side as opposed to being a woodworker. Maybe they become, you know, some sort of a manager, or they know how to handle people, or something along those lines. I mean, there are people that go into nursing that end up being pharmacists. You know, they wanted to be a caregiver, but, you know, when they get exposed to the schooling and the avenues they're able to go to, they never become a caregiver. They find their avenue is somewhere else within the field. And it's the broad-based education, I think, on a general basis, as opposed to us trying to graduate people from school, secondary school or high school, and to be experts in a certain field. I think a broad-based education probably might be a better option, and let the college level, the university level, you know, target what your interests are, if that is indeed necessary. A lot of times it may not be.
Quick question for you, Chris, from the kind of the US perspective in terms of schooling. You talked about you've got your electives and you can pick one in first semester and then a different one in second semester and so on and so forth. Did you have an exam to sit and be tested and then graded at the end of that? So when you left school, you'd have a certificate in X, Y, Z?
No. The only certificate you get from graduating the school system in America is a high school diploma, and that is basically just it's a general education diploma. And that means that you have gone through the school system, you have a good general basic education, but it doesn't. No, I didn't get an arts certificate out of high school. I didn't get anything to do with arts until I graduated college, where I got a performing arts degree. I mean, so no, they don't give you those certificates in the US. You get
so what kind of what I was getting at. I mean, certainly for me when I was at school, presumably for Stephen, for Jamie, and obviously for Chloe here and Caitlan as well. When you finish high school, secondary school at 16, you'll have a certificate and an exam in maths and one in science and one in, you get a graded in so it's all kind of a package. So you could do really well at science and really badly at maths, but you still pass, if that makes sense. So when you are year 7 and 8 and probably 9 for Caitlan, but not for you because you've done your options, you would have done, am I right in saying you did art, you did drama, you did a bit of cookery, a bit of graphics, a bit of woodwork, and you kind of had those, a bit like you did, Chris, in so much as, although they weren't elective, you'd have a term doing, say, cookery, and then the next term you'd have doing, I don't know, what was it? Textiles. And then presumably you could have picked one of those two, but didn't. Is that right? Was that the same for you, Caitlan, as well? Did you do like a few subjects and then be able to pick one?
Yeah, I did a few subjects, and last year in year 8 I picked 2 subjects to do. So instead of doing art I did food tech, and instead of doing music I did drama, and I did those. But because this year I've missed out on doing art, I've got to go to a club every day before school to catch up on art this year, ready for next year for GCSE. So
you're doing a class before school so that next year you can get that class and then hit the ground with your feet running, so you're not missing half a semester because you weren't able to get it this year. That makes sense. I mean, I'm sorry you have to do that. It prolongs your day, but you do what you got to do, right?
I'm actually interested to know. I've got a question for both girls. You might not want to answer it, but we'll see. What are your honest opinions on, as students, of the standard of teaching from the teachers, and do they listen to what you actually have to say? If you have an issue, or if you have a problem, or if you want to maybe do something slightly different, do they listen and give you that opportunity, or do you find that they tend not to listen to the students?
I have an appalling teacher. She's my chemistry teacher. My chemistry teacher is actually terrible. I haven't learned anything in chemistry this year, so I'm doing triple science.
Chloe, is that because she's very much a disciplinarian, my way or the highway, or just because she's just boring?
No. So she'll explain something at 1,000,000 miles per hour, give you 2 seconds to write it down, ask if everybody understands. Everybody says no, and then she goes, "Okay, moving on," and goes on to the next thing.
Oh, God.
It's like nobody understands anything that she's going on about.
Caitlan, what about your teachers? I mean, are your teachers overall pretty nice? I mean, do you get along with them, and do you feel like they're good teachers, or do you have, like Chloe, you have one teacher that's just I hate that class?
My maths teacher's the same. She does not teach us anything. She just talks about Netflix and sitting in bed and saying she's ill all the time. And she.
Oh, well, I guess it's hard to get your spirits up when your teacher walks in the room telling you how lousy she feels every day, and it's just not.
I had 3 teachers in particular. Right, one was actually got fired for throwing a kid down a set of stairs. Right,
Yep.
in what we called the tower, which was like a four-story tower, right? Another one kept going was a woman known, which we all called Bomber Harris. She was let's say a larger woman, and she kept going. She kept going on about her year 11s and how one day she walked out of the room and they called her a bitch or something, wrote it on the wall, right? And the other one was actually my woodworking teacher, and he looked me dead in the eye one day and said, "You will never ever be a woodworker." And that's why I am convinced as why I never got woodworking as my GCSE first choice, because he was the one I sat in the room with when I gave him the choices.
That's
Yeah, I mean, I'm really interested to hear both the girls' points, and I kind of knew I would get that answer if I'm honest, because every kid has a teacher that they don't necessarily like, but I found that, I mean, you all know I've got a big family, so my kids have all gone through the system and are all at various stages now. And my second oldest son is now doing what they call the leave insert here, which is the final exams of school, had 2 really bad years at school. And that's because my son is very much like me. If someone confronts him, his back will go up and he'll stand his ground and he'll want to get his point across. Now, that's fine if you've got a teacher that's willing to listen and to talk about it and to teach that, yes, I will listen to you, but under my terms, and then we will, you know,
right.
we'll sort it out. If you've got teachers, as there are in the school that he's in now, who will equally fight back and use their authority, and instead of discussing and talking about the problem or the issue, they make a fool out of the person that has a problem in front of the rest of the class and then says, get out. Then that said child, and not just my child, there has been other children, will then rebel.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's just natural. I mean,
yeah,
most people would.
They then lose lessons and they lose points and such like. My wife, while I was away in Canada, my wife went to to kind of a graduation type thing where they get awards and things like that. And my son actually won an award for best, I forget how it was worded. I can't remember how it was, but basically his performance had been way better this year than the previous first 2 years. He won an award for that.
Much improved.
And
yeah,
best improved. And my wife was delighted. When I heard it, I was fucking annoyed because
like
he shouldn't have ever had. He should never have had to improve. He should have been able to continue the way he was.
Richard said last week about attendance. It's like you should at least do the bare minimum. It shouldn't be rewarded for doing so. Caitlin, we had a question from the chat to you. Hippie Noodle wants to know how many students are at your school. Do you know how many students are in your school?
We're primary and secondary school joined together, and throughout the whole school, there's 800 children.
So with secondary school included, and you've got about 800 kids in your school. Okay, that's a good sized school. Now, how many do? And I don't know that you would know this, but I mean, how many students are in your grade, your year 9? Do you know?
I think there's about 150.
That's not bad. That's not bad. See, when I graduated from my high school, I graduated. The 12th grade was a class of 800 kids. So I went to a much larger school, apparently. And I think that does have something to do with the education kids get too. I mean, class size matters. Are your classes? How large are your classes, Caitlin and Chloe? I mean, are they 30 people? Are they 15 people? Or are they 50? I mean, what's your typical class size as far as the kids that are sitting in the classroom with you?
About 35.
That's a good size class.
Mine are 30.
30, 35? All right, so it's about the same.
I get the impression.
That's a good size class, though, isn't it? That's a good size class for a teacher to pay attention to individuals at that point.
There's actually another point that Andy put up on the chat, and he just mentioned that there's some good YouTube channels for Chloe regarding science that she can go and watch. But my argument would be, why the hell should she have to watch YouTube videos when the teachers are getting paid to do their job? You know, listen to the students. This is where I was getting to with my point. Listen to the students, and when they're telling you we're not getting this, fix it. Don't expect them to have to watch YouTube channels. You know,
it's kind of where I was coming from with the after hour and before school clubs. It's like I think it's admirable that both Caitlan and Chloe attend them because they want to. But I just wonder why they should have to. It's kind of what my point was. But I do understand where you're coming from, Steve. But you know, I don't know, and this is something that we should have talked about. How much of your curriculum, the course, let's say you have an English class, a basic literature class, how much of your class do you think your teacher is teaching you because your teacher was told they have to teach you this, and how much of it do you think the teacher is actually teaching because she's hoping to get you involved in the education portion? Because each teacher, at least in the American school system, each teacher has to form a curriculum for each one of their classes, present it to the principal has to sign off on it, then it goes up to the superintendent's office, and they all have to sign off on that individual's teacher's course curriculum for the year. And I don't know if that's the standard that's used in the UK or elsewhere or not, but that's typically how it's done here. Are your teachers teaching you? Do you think they're teaching you what they want to teach you, or what they think, or are they teaching what you think they have to teach you? Caitlan?
A bit of both.
A bit of both? Okay. Chloe?
I know. So my English teacher, she improvises quite a lot. So I guess she teaches what she wants to teach. But sometimes my graphics teacher or my my chemistry teacher, they seem like they don't have any clue what's going on. Like, they clearly haven't made the lesson plan if someone else has, and they're just going along with it because that's what's on it. They don't really know what they're doing.
Do you think, I mean, you mentioned English, so I'll jump on that. I mean, presumably you do, and I'm kind of talking to Caitlan as well, like one of the Shakespeare plays.
Romeo and Juliet.
So you did Romeo and Juliet, I did Macbeth, and I think I did Hamlet as well. Have you done a Shakespeare?
I've done Romeo and Juliet.
It's funny, I did Antigone. But okay.
So I think from kind of that point of view, I think the teachers, like the curriculum, the national curriculum says they have to do it might say it's got to be a Shakespeare, it might be some classical piece of literature that everyone knows. And I think potentially there is, so your English class might have done Romeo and Juliet, your friend's class might have done Tempest.
A Midsummer Night's Dream, or
one of the others, basically. Yeah.
So the whole school does Romeo and Juliet in
Taming of the Shrew.
10 or year 11.
I could go on, but I won't.
Everybody does a play, everyone does a poem, everyone does Shakespeare, everyone does a 19th century piece.
Okay, so from the point of view, just dragging on the Shakespeare side, does everybody do the same Shakespeare story?
Yeah, because it's the same lesson plans for all the classes.
See, because I was wondered whether it would be, so Mr. English teacher A, he did Romeo and Juliet, and that's his favourite, so he teaches that, but Miss X does the Tempest because she did that, or she prefers that. But then it doesn't matter because both classes have done that part of the national curriculum. Does that make sense?
All right, to be fair, and I want to be fair to the teachers to some extent here too, and I mean, understanding that we have Andy and possibly Dave out in the chat as well. But if you're set and you have a single course, like you just mentioned, Chloe, the teacher has 6 periods a day they have to teach. Okay, they have 6 different classrooms that rotate in and out. If they have to teach the exact same course 6 times a day, I can see where teachers would become less effective towards the end of a day than the beginning of a day, or maybe even vice versa, depending on what kind of morning they're having. It's like, that just seems like even the teachers could use some diversity and the students would benefit from it. I mean, I maybe I'm wrong, but that's just, I don't know that I could do that. I don't know that I could sit there and teach 6 different classes the exact same thing every day, day in, day out for 5 days a week. That would drive me nuts.
They don't teach like the same lesson periods a day, all day, every day. They have, so like they'll have like if maybe 2-3 periods, and then a year 7 class, a year 8 class, a year 9 class, a year 10 class.
So okay, got
and
it.
then all of those classes will have different like lesson plans.
Got it. All right. No, that's good. That's good. I mean, that you've got a good sized school, so that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. Is that how it would be in your school as well, Caitlan? With like, I mean, I'm just using the English example, but
Yeah.
So the teachers maybe may teach a couple year 9s, and they may have a break, and then teach a couple year 10s, couple year 11s, couple year 12s in the end of their day. So they're not teaching the exact same course 6 times a day. They're just, okay, I got it. That makes sense. Well, that's good. Actually, that's good. Glad to hear that.
I can't believe it's going to be me that's going to say this, Chris, but I've just looked at the clock and realised it is already 10:30, and
It is.
I in it, like 2.5 years we've been doing this podcast, I've never been the one to say it's time to call time on this, but this week I am, because I've got a pretty sneaking suspicion the cat's on the other side of the door about to burst in, because it is literally a school night tonight, ironically. Chloe, thank you for coming on. I know you look like a bit of a rabbit in the headlights when we said. Caitlan, the same. Thank you for coming on. I apologise because I now can't hear you, but hopefully one of the others will kind of pick up the conversation. Would you be happy at a later date coming on just to talk about what you do with your channels? Because you've got loads of channels and stuff that you're making and doing as well.
Yeah, I have. I have Dirk's Works. That's about it.
Okay, thanks for that. Lead me into that segue. Well done.
No.
Fine. Caitlan, what about yourself? Because I know I want to know much more about what you're doing. So would you?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yes, she said yes. She'd be willing to suffer through us one more time in the future. But we should give her a break to recover.
Absolutely. And I mean, we can't hear what Caitlan's saying. Because obviously went out there, but the bonus is we can't hear what Jamie's saying either. So before we do the big hurrah and the thank yous and everything, is it time to do Jamie's page? Because I can't hear anyway, so I don't care.
Oh, you even brought that up for the first time in 2 years.
That's only because he can't hear me, and it's Jamie's page.
Oh God. Anyway.
So yeah, it is. So only a quick thing about it is. Last week, I mentioned about Facebook groups being set up by makers for their local regions. Well, a few more have been set up for the UK and Ireland and Wales and the US. I've set up a thing up on the podcast website, which is makersinternationalpodcast.com. At the top of the page, there's a group for UK and Ireland, and one for US and Canada. If any other people want to set up groups in, say, Australia or anywhere else in Europe, I'll put an extra tab on the website. Just contact me with the name of your group, and I'll add it to the list. But at the moment, we've got Kent makers, Yorkshire makers, Dorset and Hampshire makers, South Wales. And then in Ireland, we've got Ireland makers, and then the Southeast Ireland makers. And in the US, we've got the Southern Woodworkers. So that's all that's there at the moment. Are we doing shout outs?
If you would like, Jamie, go right ahead. I mean, we're already over, so it doesn't matter. Let's go blow through it if you want to. Okay,
so my shout out this week is Jim Overton. He done a wood turning of a giant eyeball with opals in it. Now, obviously, Scott Grove sells his mother of pearl inlays, but he's just started selling some man-made opals called Krakatoa, Viper, and Marina. So Jim used them in this giant eyeball that he did with some gold leaf and some resin in it, and it came out looking absolutely incredible. So yeah, that's my shout out for this week.
Fantastic. I'm going to actually skip my shout out this week, Richard, but I do want to mention that I think it may be wise for us to let the people listening and or watching know that we're going to be taking a 2-week vacation. So this is today is going to be the last show we do for 2 weeks. Will we be back? I think what is it, July? If I remember correctly, July 7th we'll be back. So we're going. This is going to be we're taking a 2-week break. I just want to let you know that. And by the time we get back, this is just an idea, Jamie, Steve, Richard. Perhaps our first show back. Maybe we should finally tackle the Team Scrollsaw, Team Turner little competition thing that we had going on. Plus, I know that Jamie, in our bank account with our sponsors, we have a very large giveaway we can do on that show as well. So when we come back, hopefully we can tackle Team Turner versus Team Scrollsaw and also do a giveaway. Sound like a plan, boys?
Yeah, could do. Yeah,
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me.
All right, awesome. That's all I got then, boys.
Did Caitlan have a shout out?
Yeah.
Go for it, girl.
I'd just like to say thank you to everybody that is making rings for my project.
Oh yeah, okay. We'll share that. I'll put the links for that again when we share the podcast around again.
Yep.
So
I'll share I'll share the link to your video that you put out on that, Caitlan, because that's good stuff. Okay, awesome.
Awesome. And Chloe, do you have a shout out this week? That you somebody you want to big up in the maker world?
Make It So put out a cool video of a painting of Iron Man.
Yes,
that was very cool.
That was.
She did a killer job on that.
Did anyone see that? She posted it on Twitter, and Adam Savage retweeted it because he's on one of his things. He saw it. What somebody explained it better than I can. Adam Savage was doing something to do with Iron Man on his show, and Soph posted hers and tagged him in it, and he saw it and tweeted it, and it just went mad. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Nice.
Well deserved.
Good for her.
Nice.
Stephen, down to you.
The way to do it. Yeah. Excuse me while I choke on my own spit. My shout out is I actually didn't have any shout outs because I haven't been watching much YouTube. So I literally a couple of hours ago just typed in wood turning and then set all the things for today, and this new thing came up. It's called Lowe's Joinery and Spray Painting Specialist, and it's a guy. He literally just got his first lathe, and he's got 3 tools, and he turns the Elder Wand from Harry Potter, and he faffs about, messes about, and all that. But I like him because he's my kind of guy. He says, listen, this isn't the right way of doing it. I'm going to wing it and watch me do it. And if you don't like the way I'm doing it, tough. So I like that. So I've subscribed and I will be following him from now on because I just like his attitude.
Awesome. And that's Lowe's, what was that again, Steve?
Lowe's Joinery and Spray Painting Specialist. He says he's going to be kind of continuing on his woodworking journey now. From now on, now he got a lathe given to him.
Awesome. Well, on Wednesday, if you're listening to this, the link will be in the description for that. So awesome.
I think his name's Aaron or Adam. Aaron, I think. Aaron Lowe. He's
Is it? I'd not heard of him.
He's a really nice guy. And I haven't seen the video. I've seen it in my thumbnail, so I do subscribe to him, but I haven't watched the video yet. But I can just imagine him going, "Yeah, I'm just going to wing this," because he is that kind of dude. I don't know. Presumably, Jamie was rattling on about his shout out in.
He took care of it.
Yeah, that's fine. I couldn't listen to him. Woohoo! I very quickly have got a shout out. It is Matt Bree Customs. Matt's done this awesome kind of metal workers junk build where he makes a dragster out of old spanners and sockets and bits of metal and stuff. So that was a cool video. Nice and quick, little. I think it's about 3 minutes long in Matt's normal kind of cool style. So that's well worth a watch, particularly if, like me, you don't have time to do anything. It's a nice quick video. So
send that link to me. Send that link to me, Richard. Please don't forget.
Already done, Steve. I think it was Steve. Already done, Chris. I sent it, I think, over on Messenger, so it's there somewhere. Awesome.
Well, Caitlan, Chloe, thanks for putting up with us, and it was very interesting hearing your point of view today, and I seriously want to thank you very much for coming on with us. We much appreciate it, ladies. Thank you.
Yes,
exactly. Well done, girls. You did really well.
Considering it's us as well, just like extra well. But thank you for coming on, Chloe. Thank you for coming on, Caitlan. We had a little trial run yesterday, and I was a little bit nervous to start with, but fantastic from both of you. And also to those people that are listening live. If you are listening live, why, it's bizarre. But if you're still listening to us, we'll say what we like about you. no, that didn't come out quite right, but I think you know what you mean. So until next week when we're talking, no, until 3 weeks time when we're talking about something else, you stay safe, take care.
Have a great day. See you guys.
Take it easy, everyone.
Bye.